You know, we probably won't know for sure until about a year from now, but it sure looks like the now Trump-heavy conservative Supreme Court is about to make abortion functionally illegal for millions of women across nearly 24 states. On Monday, the court announced that it would take a Mississippi case that is setting off alarm bells. That law, it would ban abortion after just 15 weeks of pregnancy, but the court appears ready to even go further than that, even though no one asked them to do so. In taking the case, the court said it would rule on whether all pre-viability prohibitions on elective abortions are unconstitutional, which means it could easily allow all states to ban basically at any point. Here's a map of what a ban might mean. The darker the color, the greater the impact. The dots representing current locations of abortion providers. In the Midwest, from Michigan south through Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, women may not have a single place to get a legal abortion. The South will be impacted even more. The entire region, from the Carolinas to El Paso, may see every single abortion clinic close. Same with Idaho, Wyoming, Arizona. I'll do the math for you. 21 states where a woman could lose any right to choose, forcing them to decide whether to keep an unwanted pregnancy or spend who knows how much money to get a state where they will have that right. Now, that is if they can afford it. And of course, millions of women won't have the financial wherewithal to make even that difficult choice. Now, leave it to Texas Governor Greg Abbott to even go further than that. He just signed into law a new measure to outlaw the procedure after just 6 weeks of pregnancy. A lot of women have no idea if they're even pregnant at that point. And for more, I want to bring in Pam Belluck of the New York Times. Pam, a Pulitzer Prize-winning health and science reporter. She's going to have to give us a few minutes. Pam, did I overstate potentially what the court's ruling could mean for where abortions, for all intents and purposes, are going forward even legal?
No, I don't think you overstated it. I mean, of course, we don't know how far they will go with the decision on a single case. I think, as you said, if they narrowly decide this case that concerns the Mississippi law, and they stick to sort of the 15-week threshold that's in the Mississippi law, then it won't have as dramatic an impact on states, but it certainly will have an impact in a lot of states, because of course every state will then, that is a conservative state, will rush to pass a similar law, and those will have to be upheld. If they do go further, as you suggested, then half the country, just about, could end up being without an abortion clinic. And I think you described the implications of that very well. But one thing, to sort of underline is that this lack of access is likely to disproportionately affect women who are low income and women of color. And so it has the potential to sort of widen the inequities that we already see in the abortion landscape.
Yeah, and just to double or triple down on that point, the Supreme Court is not considering that Roe v. Wade is any longer a woman has a right to choose. This becomes an economic issue when it comes to access. And as Pam and I've tried to say is, if you have the means, you're going to get on a plane and go to a state where you can do this. If you don't have the means to travel, and right now it's limited in many states, that choice of access doesn't become really a practical one. So to me, listen, I'm not confused that this social issue is still up for debate, but it's to the lengths that they went to where they could have been more subtle, in that many of these, Pam, there's no exceptions. Rape, incest, health of mother, they made this absolute. And in choosing the number of weeks, I know in your article you wrote that according to the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, an embryo isn't considered a fetus until 8 weeks after fertilization or 10 weeks into a pregnancy. You say it at 6 weeks. We're not even talking about, even under the most strictest medical term, any viability here. It's a really arbitrary number to pick.
Well, you're getting to the heart of the abortion debate, right? So there's a medical definition, which is widely accepted and accepted by people who are in favor of abortion rights, which is that a pregnancy, it isn't really considered a pregnancy until the embryo has implanted and until it's developed to about 8 weeks gestation. But for people who oppose abortion, many of them believe that life begins at conception, and that really any attempt to allow a termination once an egg has been fertilized constitutes abortion. So you have sort of polar opposite ideas of what we're talking about when we say pregnancy and when we say life begins, and it's really hard to find a compromise there when you talk about the definition.
And Pam, when we're looking at polling on this, in terms of creating a policy, I'm not talking, certainly we have real debate and division in polling numbers in terms of late-term procedures, but this early in a pregnancy, without exceptions, there's not a public appetite for that, at least from the polling I saw.
Yeah, I don't think there is a polling appetite, a public appetite for that. Most polls, as I understand them, have a sort of interesting nuance that a lot of these laws don't capture, which is that many Americans support the right to an abortion, and they think abortion should be legal. But at the same time, many also feel that it should be restricted more than the current Roe v. Wade, statute precedent allows. So it's a complicated issue, and you often do not get that complexity reflected when you look at the advocates on both sides, on both sides of the debate.
One other thing I didn't mention under the lack of exceptions, ectopic pregnancies, which you talk about, where you have a non-viable embryo and it won't turn into a viable fetus. They would force a woman to take that to term. That's just one of the consequences. You won't know that after 6 weeks. But finally, it's always risky trying to guess what a Supreme Court will and won't do. But at the confirmation hearings, every one of the most recent justices all said that Roe v. Wade was settled law. But the fact that they're taking this case and some of the language I mentioned in my introduction, they wouldn't be taking this if they weren't going to do something with this. Isn't that, the running logic here?
I think it's very hard to say. I mean, what we do know, you do obviously have a Supreme Court that has 6 conservative justices, which is, more than there have been in a long time, and so it is possible under legal reasoning to both not technically strike down Roe v. Wade and yet still have a restrictive ruling, a conservative ruling that would, uphold one of these restrictive laws. And so, one of the sort of lines of thinking in people who look at the abortion landscape is that Roe will actually sort of technically remain, but several of these restrictive laws will be upheld, and therefore the abortion landscape will be sort of chipped away. And so, rights and access will be kind of whittled away to the point where it will at least make a significant difference in women's ability to have access to abortion.
Pam Belluck, thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
I'm happy to join you.
And up next, COVID. Lately, it's been lots of good news and also a lot of worries. A new milestone on vaccinations met with worries about vaccination rates as everyone in the nation tries to work their way through our new mask rules.